The sound of rain pounding against the thin tent fabric echoed like a death knell. Outside, the rhythmic slamming on the door accompanied the desperate screams of a dying classmate. Zhang Hang begged to be let in, his voice cracking with the terror of the monsters at his heels. Inside the room, 3 boys leaned their weight against the frame, their faces pale with indecision. Ruoxi, the blonde class representative, screamed at them to open the door immediately. Yubay watched the scene with hollow eyes, feeling the phantom pain of an arm he had yet to lose. He remembered this exact moment from 15 years ago, the day his hell truly began. Ruoxi claimed she would take responsibility, a lie that had cost Yubay his future in his first life. The boys finally relented, their fear of Ruoxi's authority outweighing their fear of the undead. As the door creaked open, the transformed Zonghang lunged into the room with a guttural snarl. Chaos erupted instantly as students scrambled over desks to escape the snapping jaws. In his past life, Yubay had been shoved into the monster's path by a coward seeking an exit. He felt the memory of teeth sinking into his flesh and the excruciating heat of the infection. But this time, Yubay's eyes snapped open to the present, his consciousness fully returned. He realized the regression was complete. He was back at the exact second before the tragedy. Ruoxi was still barking orders, oblivious to the fact that her death was already being calculated. Yubay smiled thinly, expression that chilled the few who noticed it. He asked her if she would still take responsibility if the boy outside had already turned. Ruoxi scoffed, calling him a coward for fearing a classmate in need. Since she was so brave, Yubay suggested she be the one to open the door herself. The girl froze, the hypocrisy of her leadership suddenly exposed to the silent room. Goaded by the stares of her peers, she grabbed the handle with trembling fingers. The moment the latch clicked, the door was kicked inward by the rotting force outside. The infected Zonghang collapsed onto Ruoxi, his teeth snapping inches from her throat. In her panic, Ruoxi grabbed the nearest boy and tried to pull him in front of her as a shield. Yubay moved with the speed of a seasoned hunter, his heavy boot connecting with Ruoxi's ribs. He kicked her straight out into the rainy hallway where the rest of the horde waited. Yubay then drove a heavy screwdriver through the skull of the zombie that had breached the room. He picked up the fallen door and slammed it shut, cutting off Ruoxi's terrified pleas. He ordered the stunned survivors to begin barricading the entrance with every piece of furniture they could find. The other students watched him in silence, terrified of the stranger inhabiting their classmate's body. Yubay didn't care about their fear, he only cared about the efficiency of their defense. As the morning light broke, he decided to check the perimeter alone, much to the group's horror. He stepped out onto the blood-soaked grass, his grip tightening on his makeshift weapon. A female zombie lurched toward him, but she was met with a brutal, calculated strike to the temple. Kneeling over the corpse, Yubay dug through the gray matter until he found his true prize. A small, glowing green pearl rested in his palm, the first unit of black gold energy. With this, he could begin constructing the tools that would change the course of history. He turned his back on the school, knowing that the real monsters were yet to appear. Suddenly, a low-frequency hum resonated through the air, signaling the arrival of something unnatural. In the distance, a purple vortex began to swirl above the city's tallest skyscraper, defying all laws of physics. The purple vortex pulsed with a rhythmic alien light that cast long, unnatural shadows across the silent city streets. Yubay turned his back on the celestial anomaly, knowing the clock was ticking faster than he had anticipated. He checked the mechanical components in his bag, ensuring the prototype energy cores were still stable. The sounds of the undead rising from the alleyways below echoed like a grisly choir of the damned. He navigated the labyrinthine streets toward the coordinates of a hidden research facility he remembered from his previous life. A sudden movement in the shadows forced him to draw his jagged metal blade, the edge shimmering with residual energy. A mutated hound, its flesh sloughing off to reveal pulsing black veins, lunged at him from a pile of trash. With a single fluid strike, Yubay bisected the creature, its black blood sizzling as it hit the pavement. He reached the heavy blast doors of a reinforced warehouse, the logo of Zhang Industries barely visible under the grime. He pounded a specific sequence into the keypad, bypassing the standard security protocols with ease. The doors hissed open to reveal an old man standing behind a barricade of monitors, a shotgun leveled at the entrance. Yubay raised his hand slowly, his voice steady despite the adrenaline still surging through his veins. He spoke of the apocalypse, the black gold, and the tragedy that would soon befall the world if they did not act. Professor Zhang lowered his weapon, his eyes widening as Yubay produced a shard of refined black gold from his pocket. The professor realized that the boy before him possessed knowledge that shouldn't exist for another decade. They immediately began reinforcing the facility, welding steel plates over every possible entry point. Yubay spent the next 48 hours hunched over a heavy-duty lathe, the smell of ozone filling the air. He was crafting the first iteration of the resonance blade, a weapon designed to channel the frequency of the undead's energy cores. Professor Jang watched in awe as the boy integrated ancient smithing techniques with futuristic circuit designs. Outside, the scratching on the metal doors grew louder as the first wave of the horde arrived at their doorstep. Yubay didn't flinch, his hands remaining steady as he soldered the final connection on the blade's hilt. The resonance blade hummed to life, a vibrant green edge of plasma extending from the metallic spine. He then turned his attention to a set of heavy industrial gauntlets, beginning to modify them into power assist units. Professor Jang began setting up a network of automated turrets along the warehouse perimeter, guided by Yubay's instructions. The power grid flickered as the city's infrastructure began to fail under the weight of the chaos. Yubay activated the facility's independent generator, the roar of the engine drowning out the screams from outside. From the security monitors, they watched as the zombies began to exhibit strange, coordinated behavior. It was a clear sign that the King virus was already beginning to network the individual corpses into a hive mind. Yubay donned a reinforced tactical vest, clicking the buckles into place with professional precision. He handed a modified stun baton to Professor Jang, instructing him on how to overload the energy cell if necessary. A sudden crash echoed from the roof as a mutant creature shattered a reinforced skylight. Yubay reacted instantly, drawing the resonance blade and sliding across a metal table to meet the threat. The intruder was a stalker variant, its elongated limbs tipped with razor-sharp bone spurs. Yubay parried a lethal swipe, the sparks from the collision illuminating the creature's distorted face. He found the rhythm of the creature's movements, dodging a flurry of strikes with superhuman agility. With a surge of green energy, he drove the blade through the stalker's chest, pinned it to the floor. He explained to a trembling Professor Jang that this was only a scout, and more would follow soon. They spent the rest of the night creating several portable energy barricades to protect the lab's core. Yubay began work on his most ambitious project yet, a powered exoskeleton frame to amplify his combat capabilities. He fine-tuned the neural link, feeling the machinery become an extension of his own nervous system. By dawn, the fortress was as ready as it could be, but the silence outside was far from comforting. A low, deep vibration began to shake the entire warehouse, rattling the tools on the workbenches. Professor Jang checked the seismic sensors, his face draining of all color as he saw the readings. Something massive was moving beneath the city, burrowing toward their location with terrifying speed. Yubay stood up, the mechanical joints of his exoskeleton whirring to life with a predatory hum. He knew that the Shadow Order had sent their first true Titan to eliminate the Regressor before he could grow too strong. The floor finally erupted in a shower of concrete and steel, a gargantuan armored claw reaching through the gap. From within the hole, a pair of glowing red eyes fixed upon Yubay, filled with a malevolent intelligence. Yubay realized that the facility's defenses were useless against a threat of this magnitude. As the warehouse began to collapse around them, a familiar voice echoed from the creature's throat, mocking Yubay's struggle. As the warehouse began to collapse around them, a familiar voice echoed from the creature's throat, mocking Yubay's struggle. Yubay tightened his grip on the exoskeleton controls, the green core humming with a violent resonance. He activated the emergency thrusters, launching himself through the falling roof and into the stormy night sky. High above the city, he saw the great sage hovering upon a platform of shifting black metal. The woman with white hair looked down at him with a gaze that had seen centuries of slaughter. She asked Yubay why he fought so hard for a species that had already chosen its own extinction. Yubay responded by charging his arm cannon, the mechanical plates of the suit sliding into combat mode. He fired a massive green laser that tore through the clouds toward the Shadow Order's queen. With a flick of her finger, the great sage conjured a void shield that swallowed the blast whole. Below them, the base was swarmed by rank 2 mutants, their red eyes glowing with feral hunger. Xiao Hang roared as he manned the rhino tank, crushing a row of monsters beneath his spiky treads. Inside the lab, Professor Jang frantically typed, trying to stabilize the failing power grid. Yura lay in the medical capsule, her body trembling as purple energy leaked from her skin. Back in the sky, the great sage launched a barrage of black metal shards at Yubay's suit. Yubay performed a high-speed roll, the shards scraping against his armor with a shower of sparks. A warning light flashed red as his left leg actuator took a direct hit. He gritted his teeth and redirected all power to his right fist, punching forward with a shockwave. Suddenly, the great sage revealed the truth about the coming cosmic disaster. She explained that the first meteor was only a beacon for a much larger celestial killer. Yubay realized that all his mechanical power could not stop a force of that magnitude. Down in the lab, Yura's eyes snapped open, glowing with a divine purple radiance. The glass of the medical tank shattered as she floated upward, her illness completely erased by her transformation. Massive purple wings unfurled from her back, shimmering like cosmic stardust. She flew toward the battlefield, a trail of purple light following her like a comet. The great sage turned, her eyes widening as she sensed a power greater than her own. Yura reached out and touched Yubay's mechanical hand, her presence calming the suit's violent energy. She told him that she understood her purpose now and that she would take all the black gold away. Yura began to absorb the energy from the city, the red glows of the zombies fading as their cores were sucked out. The great sage tried to flee, but her platform crumbled as its energy was stripped by Yura's resonance. Yubay called out to her, reaching with his mechanical arm to save her one last time. She looked back with tears in her eyes, telling him to live a happy life in this new clean world. Yura gathered all the corrupted energy of Earth into a single blinding purple sphere around herself. She launched herself into deep space, heading directly for the path of the incoming cosmic meteor. The collision in orbit created a silent explosion of light that changed the color of the night sky for thousands of miles. Back on the surface, the zombies fell to the ground, the virus deactivated by the removal of its energy source. Professor Zhang and Zhao Hang stepped out of the lab, looking up at the now peaceful and clear horizon. Yubay's exoskeleton powered down, the green lights flickering and dying as the era of black gold ended. He stepped out of the suit, breathing the fresh, uninfected air for the first time in 2 lifetimes. He looked at a small, inert purple crystal in his palm, the last remnant of the girl who saved the world. As the sun rose over a world that was no longer an apocalypse, the Regressor finally found his rest.